What about the connections with your own creative work?
Well,
the design as well as the John is a very fine graphic designer who is responsible for the covers of some. I've got a question from. Can I just for a second, while I remember it, the drama critic of the Financial Times, Ian Shuffle, something like that. It's called. Has a question for you, which is: do you know if Salman Rushdie and Howard Jacobson and such people are aware of your music? Have you ever had comments?
No, they're not aware. They're not aware of mine, because that was a deliberate move at that point by me, because I did covers for lots of current literature in the late 1980s and early 90s. By accident, it was a friend of mine who used an image that I did on a design annual that came out and went to everywhere in the world, and then I started getting phone calls. So it was a complete accident. But it gave me a living in a fallow period in music, so I was grateful for it. We all have these troughs in music. And it gave me an alternative life, really, which was great. But in order to do that properly, I blanked the John Foxx business and became Dennis Lee again, which was my birth name, because I didn't want to trade on John Foxx. You know, I just thought, I'll keep him in the fridge and I'll live my life, or Dennis Lee's life, and see what happens. And it worked out quite well, I'm pleased to say. So I've been very lucky all my life with these smooth transitions. It wasn't a pain. Coming out of music was great. I wanted to leave music at that point because I was bored to death with the late 80s. I thought in the late 80s, music died a death for about 5 years until acid started off and all that kind of interesting dance music kicked off. But that fallow period at the end of the 80s was a real killer, and I had to get out of it, otherwise it would have killed me. So I legged it and became, gratefully, a graphic artist for a while, and luckily I got lots of good commissions. But they were all pretty well images I'd already done, so I didn't have to work too hard to do any of it. And I was very grateful that I could make images and then just give them to publishers, and they would give me money and then put them on a cover, and then I got more work, so it was really interesting.
But that was a side issue, that question,
yes,
from a fan of yours on the Financial Times. My substantive question concerned your creative work in both of those fields, and its relationship perhaps to surrealism or to surrealist thought.
It's completely related to surrealist thought. Surrealist thinking is the central tenet of my existence, really, I think. I think there must be something in the water in Chorley, that does that. But it was a real light bulb moment when I found surrealism and read about it, and everything I read about then and since then has confirmed that everything I've done, everything I do now is to do with surrealism. Even the titles of the songs, I always try to make titles that are unlikely juxtapositions, and that's a surrealist principle. The unexpected meeting of a sewing machine and an umbrella on an operating table. It's these unlikely juxtapositions that catch fire in our imagination. If you say white flowers, well, that's a pretty image. But if you say underwater flowers, that's something else, Or if you say labyrinth, well, that's interesting. But if you say labyrinth generator, that's 2 words. And there's a whole world and a universe in that phrase, isn't there? Labyrinth generator. Isn't that magical? It's just 2 words. But it triggers the hell of a lot of things off in your mind, doesn't it? You're traveling down that labyrinth What's generating it? How is it generated? You know, it's these juxtapositions that really make it, our minds work. We have to work. And this is how dreams work. When we go to sleep, I think we're filing away all the experiences we've had in the day with all the other experiences we've had in our lives. And we wake up just in time. We forget most of it, but we wake up just in time to get a few scraps out of the shredder. And that's what we remember. And that's magical stuff. And if you listen to it, it can give you a lot of clues about what you've been missing consciously, because we do operate on these two levels all the time. And making that link between the two is the most essential thing in my life. I write dreams down, I write random thoughts down, I write random words down all the time, as advised by André Breton in 1935. So I carry those, I've always carried those precepts right into my life and into my work completely. The cut-ups are obvious things that Bowie used to do and Burroughs used to do. I don't do that. I don't need to do that because life's cut up enough now. You know, you sit on a train, you see a cut-up. You look at movies, watch television, half listen to a conversation. That's a cut-up. The whole of existence now is moving so quickly that it's a cut-up. You don't need to cut anything up. It's already cut. That's what we were talking earlier, weren't we, about people's listening habits changing. That there's an audience for quiet, tranquil music now. And that's as a relief from the frenetic world. We want to come home and listen to something that is minimal and gives us space away from all that frenetic stuff outside. And we generally want to do that. We're tired of things that grab us by the lapels, like pop music used to do. And I think we want to listen to tranquil stuff. I need both personally. I need the lapel-grabbing assault, punk-like, velvet, underground-like white noise thrills me to bits still. But equally, I need that space. I need to step out of the world sometimes and use that minimalist idea that if you give anything enough space around it, it becomes luminous and important and interesting. And I think that's very true. And that itself comes out of surrealism. It's one of the surrealist precepts about separating objects from their context and changing their relationship with the world. So minimalism came out of two things, Zen Buddhism and surrealism, actually. And it's become a tenet of architecture. David Chipperfield he doesn't know it, but he's heavily influenced by surrealism as well as minimalism.